On Radio Row at Super Bowl 51 here in Space City, better known as Houston, with Michael Hopkins, NASA astronaut who has flown on one of the missions. He was spent 166 days in space, and he'll explain that in a moment. Not only is Michael a Missouri native, but he's a former college football player at the University of Illinois. So if anyone can speak to the Super Bowl, Michael can do that, and I guess we'll get to that in a moment as well. But first of all, welcome to Radio Row. How does it feel to be here?
Bill, it feels great. It's just a very exciting time here in Houston. You know, it's funny because we work in the space business, which I think a lot of us find very exciting. But it's interesting to see how many of us are extremely excited about football and the Super Bowl and the NFL coming here for this great game.
What you do also draws media attention. Do you guys, how much do you deal with the media in your job?
We have to deal with the media, absolutely, and I think that's good, right? I think it's nice that people understand what we're doing in space, because we obviously make a large investment in that, and so it's good to share that story. It's good to tell people about the things we're doing up there, the science that's being done, the plans for the future for exploration beyond low Earth orbit, and so I think it's exciting, right? You guys love talking about sports. I love talking about space, and so it's fun to get to share that.
All right, so tell us about your flight. You went up on the Soyuz, came back on the Soyuz. Tell us about your flight.
Yeah, so I launched in September of 2013. This is after 2.5 years of training, and went up to the International Space Station, and we did a lot of the primary objective is science. We're actually trying to figure out the technologies and how the human body behaves so that we can go beyond low Earth orbit. We can go on to Mars. And we're going to see, if we do go to Mars someday, you're actually going to be spending 2, maybe 3 years in space and in the Martian environment. So we need to understand what happens to the human body. So you do a lot of science while you're up there. Then there's also just the mundane things. You got to maintain it. It's like any house, any car. It has to be fixed every once in a while. And then once in a while, you get to do some unique things. I got to go out on a couple of spacewalks while I was up there as well.
You spent a half a year then.
Yes,
what did it do to your body?
Well, one of the major things that happens to astronauts in space is our bones get weaker and our muscles will atrophy. And so we countermeasure that with exercise. We actually spend 2 hours to 2.5 hours a day exercising on either a treadmill, a weightlifting device, or a bike. And so it's actually one of the greatest times for working out, because where do you get 2 hours a day guaranteed on your schedule to actually exercise? It's a little harder to do that down here on Earth.
But 3 years of that in an environment that nobody can simulate until you actually try to do it. What do you think that will do when the time comes?
Well, I think we've got the technologies and the countermeasures that are going to help us make it work. Now, we just had Scott Kelly, who came down just about a year ago, and he spent a year in space. So we actually had him up there for a longer period of time to, again, see what happens to the human body in that environment. And so we're learning a lot of science from his experiences. And keep in mind that when we go to Mars, you're actually going to only spend maybe 6 to 9 months in the microgravity environment. Then you're going to be on Mars, where you've got a third of the gravity. So it's going to be a little bit different, but you are going to be under gravity whenever we're exploring Mars. And then you've got that 9 months coming home. And so I think it's going to be challenging. One of the big challenges we had right now is with eyes, believe it or not. We're having impacts with our vision while we're up there. And so figuring out how to solve that is also very important for us.
Tell me about Orion.
Orion, yeah. So Orion is the vehicle that is going to allow us to go beyond low Earth orbit, go back to the moon or go on to Mars. And it's similar, it looks very similar to an Apollo capsule. It's similar to the vehicles we take up to the International Space Station now, but it has a lot of advancements in technology involved with it. And so it's really designed for those missions where when you come back to Earth, you've got a lot more energy that you have to get rid of as you're coming through the atmosphere. And so when we're traveling to the International Space Station, we're actually going 17,000 miles an hour. And we have to get rid of that when we come back in. When Orion comes back from its missions, it's going to be traveling maybe 25,000 miles an hour. And so the heat shield and everything associated with it really has to be up to par and even higher or more advanced technology than what we see today on our vehicles.
Let's say a month from now, just for the sake of argument, that the government said, okay, we're going to do this.
Right.
Money's there, commitment's been made, how long then would it take to get to Mars?
You know, right now we're shooting for 2030s to get to Mars, and I think that's possible. We have to have that commitment like you described in order to get there, because there are a lot of big issues that we still have to solve, and we're in the process of solving those. So Orion is one of those. The Space Launch System is another one. This is the giant rocket that's going to allow us to get there. But then there's a lot of little details that we still have to work out. The habitat module when we go there. What are the astronauts going to do during that 6-month transit in this small vehicle? So there's a lot of little things that have to be dealt with, and we're well down the road though on some of the big things that we've got to.
You have a wedding ring on, so you're obviously married. Could you make that commitment to go and be away from your family for 3 years? If you get that opportunity 13 years from now, would you do it?
You know, that is obviously something that I would have to discuss with my family. I have 2 sons. One of them's getting ready to graduate from high school. The other one's got just a couple more years left. And so
they would be grown men by then.
They would be grown by the time we'd have a chance to do that. My wife has been amazing. She has supported this dream that I've had my entire life. And so I think she would be like, absolutely go for it. But I don't think you can just jump in and say, absolutely I would go, because that's a big commitment.
That's a huge commitment.
It's a huge commitment.
I couldn't do it.
And
I couldn't do it.
Yeah, it would be, I wouldn't do it without some careful consideration and all of that.
What's it like to fly in space?
It's one of the most incredible experiences anyone can ever have. It's one of the most unique experiences that anyone can ever have. I have a hard time being able to describe what it's like to float, to be in an environment where there's no up or down, all day long, every day, and to work in that fashion. You really have to reteach yourself how to work, because all of a sudden orientation doesn't matter like it does down here. You're not fixed. And so you find yourself, hey, I can put myself in any position I need to get the job done. And it took me a while to make that happen. And then when you, not only that, but then when you look down at the Earth from 250 miles and you get to see that every day.
Gives me goosebumps.
It
All
does.
Right. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. I still get them now. I still can't believe I did it.
Yeah. You played college football.
Yeah.
Talk about your career at Illinois and how that prepped you to do this.
You know what? I'm absolutely loving having the Super Bowl here, because it gives me an opportunity to talk about that. Because, you know, we're here for a game, right? But I honestly believe it's much more than a game, and I think anybody that's been involved in it, it influences their lives forever. And it certainly has done it for me, even my time here at NASA. And it's funny because, like I mentioned, spacewalks. When I was getting prepped the day before for my spacewalks, I was treating it like it was game day. It was the before game day, right?
Sure.
The day before. The same habits that I was doing, the same way I was trying to get to sleep at night. When I woke up, I was doing the same kind of things. I know a lot of football players probably have their superstitions, right? You got to get dressed the same way, you got to do everything, eat the same kind of meal, whatever it is. And I was doing the same things. And not only that, it's even bigger than that. There's a point when you have to cross that threshold from, and I call that's that tunnel, right? When you come out of that tunnel, you're leaving behind all the waiting, all the preparation, all the practice, and now it's real. And the same thing when you go out that hatch on a spacewalk. It's real all of a sudden. You've practiced it here on Earth in a pool, you've studied it up on orbit, but when you cross that threshold, it's real. And my experiences with football, I think, helped me get through that.
Absolutely. You were a DB, right, at Illinois?
I was, yes, defensive back.
Did you think about the NFL? Just how good were you? I'll ask it be blunt. How good were you, Michael?
How good was? That's. I guess I was good enough. I had an opportunity to play quite a bit. I lettered all 4 years. I started throughout my career due to injuries and things of that, but I was a full-time starter my senior year. I was the captain of the team on my senior year as well, so I guess I did okay with it. But in terms of continuing on into the NFL, I would have been one of those kind of journeyman type players, you know, someone that's maybe holding on at the last, maybe a practice player or something like that. And I had my career in the Air Force, and so I was committed to that already. So I didn't really give the NFL, well, not that the NFL gave me any consideration, but it just wasn't something that was in the cards, I don't think.
So, and did you just want to fly jets, or were you thinking astronaut all the time?
I was thinking astronaut. Yeah, it's something that I grew up in high school in the early days of the shuttle program.
Okay.
And they used to, I don't know if you remember back then, but they used to show the launches at schools.
Absolutely.
And you got to watch them doing it at school, and that just inspired me at that time that, hey, that looks like a fun career. And so I always had that in the back of my mind. I was always interested in flying and going into the Air Force, so that was a nice match for me.
Missouri boy, who wins on Sunday?
Missouri boy, yeah.
So you don't have any real
I know.
allegiance to either team then, do you?
I don't. But I have to say I'm going to go for the Falcons.
Okay, good. All right. The underdog, right?
The underdog.
Okay. Michael Hopkins, a U.S. astronaut, a part of the 20th class of the astronaut corps, as a matter of fact, here with us at Super Bowl 51. Thanks, Michael. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Bill. It's been a pleasure.
You bet.